This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW. Written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 120, entitled Women's Hockey Stick Awareness Moment of MGTOW/Masculist Ideas. Description. This flyer predicts how millions of women will react when they finally become conscious that they will never have babies due to millions of men having gone MGTOW/Masculist, refusing marriage and paternity. The flyer itself. Women's Hockey Stick Awareness Moment of MGTOW/Masculist Ideas. A hockey stick moment occurs when some quantity that is increasing exponentially suddenly shoots up, like a hockey stick after bending at the bottom. As MGTOW masculist ideas spread and spread, women will become increasingly conscious of them and be forced to come to terms with the existence of millions of MGTOW/masculist men who refuse to have anything to do with them, and certainly refusing to marry and have kids. The number of women waking up to the exponential growth of MGTOW/masculist numbers is still small, but in a few years the hockey stick moment will occur when millions of women, especially young women at universities, become conscious that their lives are going to be severely impacted by MGTOW/masculist men. This flyer is about that hockey stick moment when millions of women become conscious that there's a real man strike, so that, and in capital letters, they will not have babies. At first, when they first hear about MGTOWs and masculists, they will probably think that they are such a fringe group that the ideas barely impinge on their consciousness. A few years later, they will be hearing seminars and talks given by MGTOW/masculists belonging to men's lib groups on campus. Next, they will start noticing that the men that they are dating in the early years of their jobs are shying away from talk about marriage and fatherhood, saying that they don't want to marry and have a kid. They're too conscious of the massive injustice committed against divorcing fathers and want no part of it. Then these women will start to really take notice, especially after it happens to them again and again and again. They will then start talking with their girlfriends and receive confirmation that it's not just me, that is, that all her female young friends are in the same boat, noticing that men just don't want to marry and don't want to have kids. These young men are spending their money on themselves and simply expect women to pay half the date, and if the women refuse, the man just walks out, muttering words like fluffy parasitic bitch. By the way of a footnote, this attitude is growing amongst young men. For example, I was very encouraged to hear that recently in the UK, a survey showed that young men consider the fitness of women more important, in capitals, than their looks. Then articles will appear in the women's magazines, as some of these women who can't get a man to give them babies happen to be journalists and write up big stories about men increasingly taking the MGTOW/masculist route in American, and wondering where all this new development is heading. Then a few more years later, still childless and with their biological clocks starting to tick harder, they will seriously start asking the question, hey, maybe men are going to stay like this, and God forbid, in capital letters, I'm really not going to have a baby! Question mark, exclamation mark. Then the panic will set in. This panic will be felt by her female friends as well, as they too come to the same realization. Then the panic becomes collective, reinforced, strengthened, and it will be strong. Then the media takes up the issue in a big way, as women push their women's magazines to deal with the biggest issue in their female lives, that is the very real possibility that they're never going to have a kid, and that they will never have much more than a wham bam thank you ma'am type relationships with men, now that most men refuse to marry and be fathers. Now we are at the hockey stick moment. The number of women who panic begins to skyrocket as word really gets out that MGTOW/masculists have taken over the minds of most men, persuading them that marriage is toxic because divorce is toxic, and that a man is far better off not marrying and not being a father, spending his money on himself, living frugally, saving and investing hard so that he can retire young and then spend the rest of his life, maybe more than half of it, doing what he loves, instead of being a manslave to some immoral, parasitic, manslaving, fluffy, parasite female. These women will be alarmed at the general climate in society as men hit back with a vengeance, lashing out at feminazis and spitting at fluffies at meetings. Women in droves will be stating in public they are certainly not feminists, because they know if they do, that'll be the kiss of death for their chances to get a man to even sex them, let alone have a relationship with them. Women will notice how much more insistently men ask them, "What do you do? How fit, financially independent person are you? Are you looking to parasite off my money?" They will feel the contempt in men's expressions when they tell men that effectively they're fluffy crappers who studied fluffy crap, that is, career incompetent majors at college. Women will then go into deep depression as millions and millions of them absorb the bitter reality that they are truly never going to have a baby. Slowly, they will start wondering what they can do to change the situation. That will then be post-hockey stick moment, when millions of women start thinking hard about how they can get men back to have babies with them. Will necessitate some massive changes in society. Women will need to join forces with the MGTOW Masculist to get the gender laws men-fared. For example, the re-divorce laws, the paternity rejection rate, etc. They will need to cause a revolution in education at high school level, warning young women at 16 that, quote, "If you don't study math and the sciences at high school, your odds of getting a man to have any kind of relationship with you is pretty well zero. Men hate fluffy crappers because they grow up to be fluffies as adults and hence are totally rejected by men. So, no calculus, no baby. Be fip or be manless." Gradually, millions of women will become aware that men have the power to force women to be fips, because most men are fips themselves and can fend for themselves. They don't need a woman to survive financially the way a fluffy expects to parasite financially on a man. The tide will turn so viciously against fluffies that most young women will pour into the math and science classes at high school through fear of not having babies. The slogan, "No calculus, no baby," will be known to nearly everyone, and especially to young women. Parents and high school teachers will get caught up with the consciousness of the massive man strike and anti-feminazi backlash and put strong moral pressure on their daughters and students to fip up and not to study fluffy crap majors. Maybe a decade or two after the hockey stick moment, the gender laws will be changed and made men fair, with divorce laws made equitable to both sexes, with men allowed to reject paternity legally, etc. Then men will start coming back to paternity because it will have become hugely less costly, hugely less risky for men. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channel name de GARIS Masculist MGTOW Flyers. Cheers.